Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. In this video, I'm going to share some interactive pug and cat shaped cards using the new Bibi's Cat and Pug die set. So there is this big pug, this big cat, and both of these are about 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, the size of an A2 card. There are some cat and pug accessories, as well as some sentiments. And this one has a ton of different sentiments to choose from. In this collection is also this big bike. I'm not using that one in this video today, but you can see when compared to that piece of cardstock that's A2 size, that is a really big bike. You wouldn't even fit it on an A2 card. It would be more suitable for 5 by 7. So as part of the interactive element to these cards, I'm using some tiny earth magnets. They are really, really small. So this makes those accessories for the cat and pugs interactive. You can change them and you can customize them to whatever you're wanting. However, because of those teeny tiny magnets, keep in mind that they're not suitable as cards for someone that maybe would get into it and like to chew things, little tiny toddlers that may put those magnets in their mouth if they say got one of these accessories and was breaking it up or whatnot. So keep that in mind if you're going to make these cards. Consider who you're giving it to and make sure that they know, or their adults know, that there's some teeny tiny magnets in there. Because this is cardstock, and even though those magnets are enclosed between two pieces of cardstock, it's cardstock. It's they can be taken out or whatnot if you break it up or chew it or whatnot. So be forewarned for that. But it's a great way for a little bit older kids to give them something a little bit more interactive. And it was kind of inspired by those old time paper dolls where they would have the tabs and you can change the clothes on them. I thought it'd be really fun to have cards where you could change the accessories. So I'm starting with the big cat die. I've got it all die cut in white cardstock here, and I'm just doing a tiny little bit of ink blending around all the different pieces with some Lost Shadow Distress ink. This isn't going to give it a lot of color, but when we put it onto the card base, you're really going to see that ink blending, and it's going to give it a little bit more visual dimension. Even white cats, when you look at them, there's a little bit of shading around the outsides or whatever. They're not like pure white, and it's just going to give it a little bit better look than, say, just using white cardstock and gluing white on white on white on white. So I have 3 different card bases here. One I'm going to glue all of these pieces to, and then the other 2 I'm going to create my card base to, and then I'll glue this finished piece onto. So I have quite a few mistakes that I made while assembling this, because it's the first time I've assembled this big cat, and I wasn't too sure if there was an order they should go in, but I left those mistakes in here mainly because if you're going to create this, I want you to see the mistakes that I made and not make them. So the first one is this face is upside down. Because of the indents that are created on the die cut when you die cut them, it looks like this is the way the face is supposed to go. And I, at this point, was very confused because the way the eyes were shaped, it just, to me, logically, this is how it went. But you can see when I flip it upside down, now it fits. And once I put the pieces on together, I'm realizing that some of the pieces that I thought were part of the nose are just kind of indents for fur or just forehead details. So when you go to put your head on, don't put it upside down, or don't try to put it upside down like I did. I typically will lay things down first before I have glue on them, just to make sure that I know how they're supposed to go. The other thing that I made, and you'll see this in a minute, is I should have put the earpieces on first because they go beneath the face piece here. So once again, if you're going to create this big cat, make sure you put the pieces for the ears on before you put the pieces for the face on. So most of the pieces, other than those ones, are fairly easy to know where they go. But I did, like I said, want to leave those things in here because I wanted to make sure to mention them, and I wanted to help you avoid those mistakes if you're going to create these. Now, I use liquid glue when I'm gluing things together. So at this point, I mean, it is stuck, but it's not permanently stuck. So it was easy enough to fix the situation. If anything, and it was permanently stuck, I could have just ripped it off and then re-die cut the face and the ears, and then did my ink blending again, but it wasn't past the point, or wasn't beyond the point of no return. So there's also little pink pieces that go on the front of those ears. Those I would also put in before putting that face piece on. I had to do a tiny little bit of ink blending on them just to give them a little bit of natural dimension, because it would have looked odd to have the pieces of the cat done without having the ears ink blended as well. Now I'm doing a shaped card base here. You could put this onto an A2 or even a 5x7 card base. 5x7, you'd have a lot more space to work with, but an A2, you're going to be fairly stuck with how this gets put onto it. But I really love shaped cards. There's something a little bit unexpected, and most people aren't used to necessarily getting them, so it's a fun thing to be able to do shaped cards. For most of the accessories for the cat, they are really easy to put together. There is a little chain link that puts the little bell on the cat's collar. That was a little bit challenging to put on at first. What I would recommend is slide the collar through that little chain link, or that little piece, and then hook the bell on. And you can see after struggling with that bell on, I end up doing that, and it goes together much easier. Now I haven't put the pieces with the magnets on yet. That piece is coming, or that part is coming. But what I was doing while I was assembling this is I was paying attention to which pieces they were going to need to go below. And I was making sure to put those aside with my thing of magnets to make sure that I didn't glue those down before I needed to put those magnets on. So these magnets are super, super tiny. I think they're like 3 millimeter around and 1 millimeter deep. And I know I'm going into metric, but I don't know what the imperial conversion for that is. So they're very tiny. There are larger magnets available. And for the bandana for the chest, or for the around the neck, that would work to use a larger magnet. But I chose these smaller magnets because of the glasses accessories on here. You really need something tiny to be able to fit in between those glasses die cuts. Now what I did was I laid down that bandana and figured out where I wanted that magnet to go for it to glue on there, glued it down, and then glued the piece on top of it, put the little chest fur piece on top of it. Now when it comes down to putting the magnet on our accessories, I have the decorative pieces of the die cuts that you're going to be able to see on the front. And then for each one of those glasses, I have another piece die cut out of just index cardstock, which is a lightweight cardstock, so that these magnets are going to be enclosed inside 2 pieces of cardstock, but it's a lighter weight of cardstock. Even though these are earth magnets, they stick really, really well. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't the accessories were going to be able to stay on, and they weren't going to fall off because of the thickness of the cardstock. And that back piece of cardstock is only meant to enclose those magnets. Now I'll tell you right now, it's best to have those magnets enclosed in cardstock because they are so strong that if they weren't, when you go to lift your accessories off, there's a very good chance that that magnet is going to have a stronger force than the glue that's on it. So the magnet would likely rip off. So that's why it's enclosed inside 2 pieces of cardstock. So here's the tiny little nose piece that I'm putting the magnet on. And I'm putting the magnet on initially with Sukwang tape, which is a really, really thin but strong double-sided tape. And then I'm also using a little bit of liquid glue. That tape is going to make it stick immediately, so I don't have to wait for the glue to dry, but the glue is just to reinforce it just a little bit. And you can see when I lifted that card up there, there is a little bit of dimension from that magnet. It's natural, it's going to happen anyways. But it is hidden aside from when you look at the card from the side and look at it. But it just looks like the piece of cardstock is shaped a little bit. So when it comes down to putting those accessories on there, what I'm going to do is lay down those pieces where I want them to go, and then I'm going to basically drop the magnet, and that magnet is going to naturally go where the other magnet is, and it's going to be placed the correct way up. We'll get to that in a moment. While I was waiting for the glue to dry on my pieces, I decided to create the card base. So I used my score pal and I scored it at 4¼ inches from the top, and then folded that score line back and forth a couple times just to make sure that it was holding nicely and folding nicely, and then glued those top 2 pieces together. By gluing those together, I'm creating that card base. Now, you could skip one of these layers and have this front piece, the front of the card, and then just that scored piece on the back of the card. I wanted to make sure that my card base was nice and strong, and that I didn't have to fiddle around with that card base as well as the pieces on the front of it. So one thing that I forgot to do here is I forgot to add a sentiment to the inside of the card. So I'm going to do it now that the card is together, but I'm going to just use an acrylic block rather than my Misty stamping tool. Because I haven't used this stamp set before, one of the things that I do with every single new stamp set is I take a white eraser and I just rub it along the stamping surface for all of the stamps. So I know that if I've used one stamp from a stamp set, that I've done it for the whole set. I don't need to do that again. This doesn't need to be done every single time. And I just stamped that on the inside of the card with some spun sugar distressing. So I put the bandana on the front of that cat and just dropped the magnet on top of it. I could see exactly where it wanted to stick. So I just took a little pencil and put some pencil marks on there so that I knew where that magnet wanted to be. Put some Be Creative tape or Sukwang tape. We call it Be Creative tape in Canada. And just giving me marks where I wanted that magnet to be, put the tape on top, and then I could put that magnet on there, put that magnet on there and glue it between those 2 pieces. You want to make sure that that magnet is the right way, because these magnets do have a positive side and a negative side. And if you just put the magnet onto the glasses without doing this, it's likely going to be the wrong way. So by placing the under layer for those die cuts, putting that tape on there, placing it where I want them to be, and then taking a magnet and just dropping that. Now it looks on the video like I'm placing it or putting it in place, but I'm actually holding my hands about 1 inch above where that under magnet is and dropping it. So I am dropping it in place, but I can see the little bump there, so I know where that's supposed to go. So when it drops right on top of my piece of tape, and then I just press that magnet just to make sure it's nice and secure on that tape, and then tuck those aside. For the rest of my glasses, and I did all of my die cutting off screen because there is a lot of tiny little pieces for this, and I put a lot of them into Ziploc bags just to keep them nice and organized. I also held them in my medium craft stacks. I use these for pretty much every single project because they come in so handy. It's handy to have all of your pieces in one place, be able to have them right beside you, or just move them to the side when you need to, and be able to move all of your pieces at once. So they become an invaluable tool in my creating. I use them all the time, and even I have one set of medium ones, which is 4 of them. I'm debating on getting a second set because there's the odd time where I need just 1 or 2 more. So they're fantastic. If you haven't invested in them, they are definitely very recommended. I use mine all the time. So once I've assembled my little reindeer antlers with the holly, I can glue those to the underside of the glasses and then add the little stars. And the stars I did with some gold glitter cardstock, and it's from the Treasured Gold cardstock pack. This is just released this month from Spellbinders, and they are packs of metallic cardstock that have 15 sheets in them, but 5 different finishes, so 3 sheets of each finish. And they're a wonderful variety, and they come in silver, gold, and rose gold. So perfect for holiday cards or just adding a little metallic touch. And I love the fact that you can choose different finishes to go with it. So for these birthday candles, I glued them behind the glasses, and there is a little bit of that die cut that is exposed because there is also a cloud die cut that you could put on the front of the glasses, and you can also stamp happy birthday on them. I opted not to put that cloud on and not to stamp the happy birthday on them. I liked them this way just as they are. So once that glue has dried, I'm going to just take a pair of scissors and snip off the ends that are exposed. And there's really tiny pieces, but I'm just going to snip them off before gluing the pieces onto the back of the glasses. To add a little bit of extra details to those candle flames, I just took a Copic marker and just added a little bit of orange. They were die cut in yellow. And then I'm adding a little bit of glossy accents for some shine. I already put some stripes in stickles just to give them a little bit of glitter accents. But adding stickles and glossy accents to these things really take them over the top. They add just that extra little bit of texture and dimension, and are really fun details. In my opinion, that's what really makes them, like I said, over the top to the next level. And the jewel picker really helps with some of the tiny die cuts. I like to put just a dot of glue and then use that jewel picker just to place them in place. For the ornaments on the tree, I'm just using some Stickles glitter glue. You'll see that I use Stickles quite often in my videos, and usually it's the opalescent ones. But it's one of those things, it just adds a tiny little bit of sparkle detail. And because it's already enclosed in, or the glitter is already enclosed in the glue, there's no mess. It just takes a little bit of time to dry, and you can see that I touched one of the ornaments and I hadn't waited long enough. I did wait like I think 10 minutes, but there was a couple ornaments that I made on those trees, or that I put on those trees, that were a little bit thicker. So I'm going to put my glasses, my underside of the glasses with the magnet onto these die cuts and then set them aside to fully dry, but I will fix that little bit of stickles. And here I'm showing you the side so you can see where the magnet is, but because I have those die cut accessories behind there in between those two pieces anyways, it's not much thicker than that. It is thicker than that, but not much. So it's noticeable, but not completely obvious. It's not something that is really, really thick and bulky. It's just a tiny little bit more bulky than the cardstock pieces below it. So once I have these pieces all together, I can tuck them aside to completely dry, but I'll show you how they work. So you can put those pieces on there. Of course, the glasses you'll have to adjust because they'll want to go on slightly crooked, but it's really easy just to fix them. I chose to do one magnet for each just between the nose, because I figured that was the easiest place to hide it. But if you wanted, it was the easiest place to hide it and position it. But if you wanted, you could put two magnets, having them on the outside of the glasses, but I wanted to keep this as uncomplicated as possible. So I chose to do one magnet for each. And then the one thing that I could have changed is I could have put the one for the bandana a little bit higher. There's also some bow accessories that you can create for these, and I'm going to put them on the pug. But if I had put that magnet a little bit higher, the cat could have had one of those bows as well. And there's also some flowers to put on the top of the head if you wanted. You could assemble those and just glue them straight on, or you could use magnets and have those positioned as well. I opted not to for this just because, once again, I wanted to keep it as uncomplicated as possible. And I figured if I was going to do those things, I would make it a little bit more complicated. But those are also options. And then the other thing is there is the faux stitched pumpkin die set that's part of the Nicole's Needlework die set, and it has a really cute little witch hat. And I think if you wanted to create a cat for Halloween, you could put that witch hat on there, and I think that would be absolutely adorable as well. And after creating these, I was looking at that cat and wondering if it could be turned into a fox as well. I'm not sure how the nose would look, but just the shape of the cat itself, I think it would look adorable as a little fox. So now that my cat is done and drying off to the side, I'm starting to work on the big pug. And I have it cut out of just some like grayish cardstock that I had. This is the color cardstock that I had a bunch of. Most of these accessory pieces are just die cut out of scrap pieces of cardstock. Obviously, the pug or the larger pieces are not necessarily scrap because there's a lot of pieces die cut. But once again, I die cut 2 white card bases for this and one of the base of the pug in that grayish color to glue all of these pieces on. When you glue these pieces on, there's just a slight halo around both the pug and the cat, and I wanted that to be in this same color. I didn't want it to be in the white. The color that I'm doing my ink blending with is Ground Espresso Distress Pad. It's a nice dark brown, and I figured it was going to work perfectly for both the dark elements as well as the light elements. For the light elements, I'm just being a little bit more light-handed with it, and I'm doing all of this ink blending on an ultra sticky mat. I use this so often, and it sticks to these pieces really, really well and holds them quite nicely. After not putting my sentiment on before assembling my card base, I wanted to make sure that I did not do that for this guy. So I chose one of the sentiments, and this one is, the sentiment is Embrace the Wrinkles, and I thought it was absolutely adorable. So I stamped that on the inside of the card with that Ground Espresso Distress Pad. It's going to coordinate perfectly with that ink blending. I'm using my Misty stamping tool for this just to make sure that I can stamp multiple times and have it stamped perfectly, and I do end up needing to stamp it a second time. For the pug, I once again scored it at 4 1/4, only so that it was the same measurement as the first card and I would remember it, but there is a lot of room there. You could score it a little bit higher if you wanted a little bit more room on the inside of your card, but the assembly is exactly the same as the first one. Once that score mark is there, I'll fold it back and forth a couple times, put some glue above that score line, and then add the front to it, and then just set it aside to dry. And now we can start assembling our pug. So just like the first card, all these pieces get assembled and added with some liquid glue. I don't make nearly as mistakes gluing these pieces together as I did the first one. The only thing I was confused about is I have 2 nose muzzle pieces, and the one I end up using, I'm not exactly sure how it's supposed to be placed. I'm not sure if I did it right, but I like the final look anyways, so that's good. So after starting to glue the first one and realizing I made some mistakes, I did take a moment to just place things down before they were dry, just to have it clear in my head which pieces needed to go on in which layer. For this one, the ears can go on afterwards because they're going to hang a little bit in front of the face. At this point too, I'm also making sure that I have the pieces that I want those magnets to go behind all ready to go. And in the end, I put the ears on first, but I don't press them down. And then I put that face down, but I do take them and lift them up so that the ears go in front of the face. And that's why I didn't press them down. I did it really quickly just to make sure that none of that glue was going to hold and that I have room to fix it if I wanted to. I also wasn't sure if I wanted that head in front of the ears, but I like them flapped over the front of it. Just like most of Spellbinders die sets, when there's pieces that get to be or need to be layered on top, there are little indents, so it shows you exactly where those pieces go, which makes it a lot easier for the assembly. And other than making a few mistakes, it is really easy to add those elements to the front of the card and know where they're supposed to go. So there's little indents exactly where those eyes go. And I love the little wrinkles that it put into the forehead. So here is where I'm pondering which one of these pieces I want to use. I end up using this one here. And while I'm doing the rest of the creating, I'm looking at it, wondering if I put it on the correct way. But like I said, I like the way it finishes off looking. But you can see that I'm hesitating here, just trying to decide if I want it that way or if I want to change it up before that glue starts to set. And I do decide to just leave it as it is. I love the little elements that you can get on this pug, and Googled them online just to make sure that I was doing the coloring and the inking right. There are so many different color variations that you can do on this, and you can really customize it to look like someone's little pug if you happen to have a loved one or a friend that happens to have pugs as well. So now we're to the point where I can start adding the little magnets to those details. So I grab his little nose and add just a touch of that Sukwang tape to there, and then put the magnet on there and use the glue to glue that nose in place. For the one underneath his face, I'm going to put that one onto the collar. So that's what I should have done with the cat at the beginning, is I should have put the magnet under the collar so then it could be used for both the bandana as well as one of the bow ties, but that's okay. It'll be remembered for the next one. So there's a couple different pieces of the eyes as well. You want to make sure to use a die pick to poke out any of the pieces that get die cut out of there because they are tiny and likely won't fall out on their own. But here's where a pair of reverse tweezers really come in handy. They can hold those die cuts in place, and you can transfer those pieces from hand to hand easily after putting your glue on them, and you're not going to drop that little die cut piece. There's also tiny little pieces here that I've die cut in dark brown that I put on the front of the eye. I could have done it in a little bit lighter brown so that it would be a little bit more visible, but at the point of die cutting, this is what I chose. So here is where I'm adding the magnet to the collar, and then I'm going to add the little bone tag. Now I die cut it out of some silver mirror cardstock, but you could die cut it out of other cardstock and then you could stamp one of the sentiments on there as well. The mirror cardstock you could stamp on, but you want to make sure to use some permanent ink and let that sit and dry so that that's not going to move around on you and it's not going to wipe off. I chose not to stamp it. I just left it blank because I don't have a particular person that I'm going to send this to. But if you have someone to customize it for, you can absolutely do that. So I also put a little bit of glue on the collar to glue that in place. And then I'm ready to start figuring out the accessories. So once again, I'm taking one of those tiny magnets. I put that bandana in place. I just drop that magnet. I can see exactly where it's going to be positioned, and then just use my pencil just to put a few marks there so I know where I'm going to put my tape. I'll put my tape back there, take the backing off, and then position it once again to make sure that I haven't flipped that magnet over. Just drop that magnet on there. And if it doesn't, or if it, when it drops, it's not quite on the tape or not fully on the tape, you can move it a little bit, but just make sure that you don't flip it over. Because like I said before, there is a positive and a negative side. And if you have it flipped over, it's going to repel rather than attract. So once again, for these ones, I also have the white layers cut out of index stock for the underneath part of each piece. And I'm going to do the same method for adding my magnets as the cat. For the glasses, it's really, I don't need to put the glasses on there to position my tape because I know my tape is going to be on that little bridge between the two frames. So I can put my tape on there, take the backing off, and then just drop my magnet on there. And if by chance I have my glasses just a little bit too low or a little bit too high and my magnet is just slightly off of that piece of cardstock, just like the bandana, I can just move it over slightly, but once again, just make sure not to flip that magnet over. So for each one of these, I'm just putting that tape on there, dropping that magnet on there, and then just setting it to the side. So I know that they're positioned properly and they are ready to go when I have my glasses done and I am ready to assemble them. For the rest of the glasses assembly, I just did that off screen because it's exactly the same as the cat. The only difference is the pug's frames are a little bit more rounder than the cat's. You can easily mix and match them, I'm sure. But the assembly of the little accessories on them is exactly the same. And then for my little bow ties here, I'm positioning the magnets exactly the same as both the bandana as well as the glasses. Putting that little piece of tape on the inside or the center of that bow tie, and then dropping the magnets. And there I was just showing you the flowers that you can also add. And I think those would be adorable little accessories as well. I just, again, didn't want to get too complicated in this video. And there's the witch hat from that faux pumpkin or faux stitch pumpkin die set. It's perfectly sized. It would be great for either on the cat or on the pug. But if you have someone that either has a pug or a cat and loves witchy things or Halloween things, it'd be a fun thing to create for them and customize a card for them. For the bow ties themselves, I die cut them out of printed cardstock or printed paper. These are from the Bayfair collection, and I have a video or a couple videos in June using them. There's a bunch of different printed papers in there, and I thought a couple of them would be perfect for these bow ties. And my bandanas are also cut out of that cardstock as well. It's a little bit thinner paper, but because I have that index stock on the back, it works totally fine. So like I said, the glasses themselves, I just did the rest of that off screen. The other thing that I did was I added some glossy accents to both the pug eyes as well as the cat eyes, and it gives them a nice glossy finish to them as well as some dimension. And to me, it really makes these guys come alive. You can see how much better those glossy eyes look. They almost look like googly eyes by not, or puffy eye stickers, but they're not. They're just the cardstock stickers with a little bit of glossy accents on them, but you want to make sure that you let them completely dry. So here, all of my cards are done. I'm showing you how easy it is to swap out the accessories. I had one of the glasses underneath the other ones while it was drying, but it was mostly dry at that point. And if I knock my card on the my surface, they don't come off until I start being really aggressive with it. So they will stay on quite easily until you're really aggressive with knocking it onto a surface. Then it will fall off, but the magnets themselves are really quite strong. I absolutely love how these cards look and think they would be so fun to play with. You can easily take the accessories off and swap them out for different seasons, customize colors for your recipient, but they look so adorable. And because they fit just that 4 1/4 by 5.5 inch size, you can fit them into an A2 size envelope. Although with the extra accessories, you might want an envelope that's just a tiny little bit better or bigger. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really hope you enjoy watching and learning and spending your time with me. Have a fantastic day.